A sluice box is one of the most important pieces of equipment a prospector can own. I think that the first thing I bought after I got a pan and used my pan some was a sluice box, because a sluice box can handle way more gold or way more gravel than any pan can. You can do 10, 20 times as much material with a sluice box than you can with a pan. Hey, I'm Chris Rolfe, the professional prospector, and today we're talking about the good old sluice box. A great piece of equipment. Now, I was earlier out today at an area that I found nuggets before with my metal detector, and there was some bedrock there, and there was some gravel on the bedrock, and this is a place where the gold is mostly at or near the bedrock, and I dug 8 buckets of gravel there, and I'm going to take it and run it through my sluice box. Now, I could sit by the creek here and pan that, but it'd take me half a day to pan it all. It'll only take me about 15-20 minutes to run it through my sluice box, and then I'll show you what I got. But I'll talk to you a little bit about sluice boxes and how they work and why they're useful and why you should have one. Now, you can buy one like this. They're not that expensive, or you can make your own. If you make your own, you have an option to incorporate maybe some different things, some different ideas that you have. And I actually did a whole video on how to make your own sluice box, and I'll put a link to it up here and a link to it down in the description so that you can go look at that video and think about maybe if you're interested in making your own. But watch this video with me. Stay with me for this one, because we're going to go through the whole thing of how to operate a sluice box and talk about it and hopefully come up with some good gold.
Here's the sluice as I was using it in action. And one of the things that a lot of guys do that costs them gold when using a sluice is just feeding the material in too fast, too much, too fast, because you can blow material through a sluice and blow gold along with it. And you really want to wait until the sluice looks about like this, maybe more or less. Look, I can see all the riffles. Maybe the back riffle is not well exposed, but you've got most of the thing showing. There's plenty of room for gold to catch as it works its way down. The initial indicator mat, the little rib mat at the front, is clean. So this is a good position where you want to be adding more gravel to your sluice box. And if you do this type of thing, you'll catch the gold. So this is a close-up of the box itself, so you could get a better view and see that, you got material behind the riffles, but most of the matting behind the riffles is viewable. Now, this is a sluice, I got to tell you, that I've had for decades. I bought this from Keene in the late 1970s. So this thing is 45 plus years old. I've modified it a little tiny bit since I bought it. I installed a handle, which you can kind of see there at the top. The new ones all come with handles, but in those days they didn't. So I put a handle on it. I put a bit of ribbed matting up in front of the riffles, and you can see the black matting there. Allows you to see the fine gold or any smaller gold that you catch in the indicator matting up front. And then originally it came with indoor-outdoor carpet, and I replaced the indoor-outdoor carpet with miner's moss. Now, I know a lot of guys have their own matting preferences, and that's fine. But with this setup, with the expanded metal underneath the riffles, I thought the miner's moss was the best choice. And it's my sluice, so I get to make the choice of what I want to do with it. Now, I had intended to go to another location the next day and basically show you operating the sluice in a different way at a different location. But things didn't work out quite the way I planned. Let me explain.
Hey, I'm back with my sluice. Yesterday I was planning for today to go to a spot where I'd done some dry washing, and I was going to test the dry wash tailings, because the gold there was kind of fine, And, you know, dry washers, I've used them. I've done videos on dry washing, and it's a great tool for the prospector, especially if you're out in desert areas. But dry washers do great if you get chunky shot-sized gold and bigger nuggets, of course. They'll do wonderful with that kind of stuff. But when it starts coming to the fine and the flaky kind of stuff, you know, the finer and flakier it is, the lower your recovery is going to be with a dry washer. So I know that some of the gold there where I was kind of flaky and fine. And so I wanted to, and I'd done pretty well with my dry washer last year. So I wanted to take the sluice and grab some buckets of that gravel, go down to a nearby creek and run them through. Because always you're going to get better recovery with a sluice than you will with a dry system. Well, that's a little higher elevation than this location. And I got up there and there was 2-3 feet of snow on the ground. And we weren't going to be driving off on any dirt road out into the middle of nowhere trying to fight with 2-3 feet of snow on the ground. It was just like a wall of snow. So I come back to the same place I was at yesterday. And I think that's going to be a good thing for me. You know, I've got my sluice. I've got it set up for the creek right behind me. And a sluice is a really great tool. I kind of emphasized that a little bit earlier in this video. You're just letting the water do the work for you. You know, with a pan, you shake the material and the gold kind of settles down. And then you wash the material off the surface, the light stuff off the surface, shake it down, wash the light stuff, shake it down, wash the light stuff. Well, with a sluice box, the sluice does the work for you. The sluice will, you know, the water, just as it goes through the sluice, the heavier stuff gets trapped. It doesn't want to move. The lighter stuff just washes through the sluice. And so you're letting the sluice do the work for you, which is what you want to do. Now, yesterday I actually did pretty good. I got a nice little nugget from the gravel that I ran through on the creek with the sluice box yesterday. And I will show you that stuff. But I haven't actually fully panned it out yet. So I'm going to go ahead and run some more gravel and we'll test that. I dug it in a slightly different place, although it's kind of adjacent to where I was digging yesterday. I hope to do really well, just as well today as I did yesterday. So come along with me. We'll take a look. We'll run some more gravel and get some more gold. And that's what sluicing is all about. So if you got water, you're a new prospector, sluice box is really a great tool. All right, let's get started. I've done enough jawing. Time to run some gravel.
So I thought I'd just record myself putting in some of the gravel into the sluice. I've actually already run kind of most of all of it. This is the last bucket. And you'll see at the back of the sluice, you'll see a large area of light colored material. This is all the sand and gravel that's run through already. And at this point right here, I'm picking out the rocks. Now, you might say, hey, it's better not to have to pick out the rocks. And indeed, I would have screened this material, but as it came out of the ground, it was kind of damp. I did have a screen, but the screen, it was damp and clayey. So I didn't want to just try and screen it because I knew a lot of the material would stick to the rocks that I screened out. And, you know, they've done studies, and this is really true, and this is an important thing for people who are going to run a sluice box, need to remember this, is that fine gold will stick to the bigger rocks more than it sticks to the gravel itself. They've done tests and literally taken gravel and screened out, say, everything over a half an inch, and then run all the fines under a half an inch, and then washed off the half inch and larger and run it separately. And there's maybe half as much gold just sticking to the bigger rocks as there is in the gravel. And the smaller gravel is the vast majority of the material that you're running. So I had to fiddle a little bit with this as I put material in. Pick out the rocks just because that's what I had to do. Now you'll note that I'm not adding too much material at a time, kind of standing up and letting it clear through. I'm picking out the rocks and then just letting the material flow on through. Again, the idea, like I say, is to let the sluice box do the work for you. If you're trying to push material through there, you're not letting the water do the work. You see, I'm taking some time to watch the box, let it clear on its own. Now that I've gotten the rocks out of it, I can just let the water do the work. Keep an eye on it and make sure that it's doing what it needs to do. Now, on a little stream like this, you can maybe see, the sluice box has a Y shape. And, that's another thing. I'm doing this at the end is, when you blow through material, especially in a small stream like this, you need to kind of push away the tailings at the back of the sluice. You'll run through, and then after the material gets out of the sluice box, it'll kind of pile up. And that's why I have that large area of light color, because I've literally moved material around that's come out of the sluice box, pushed it aside, and let it settle out in the river. But I was going to say that the sluice box is Y-shaped, and you can hardly see it, but I've got some rocks in front of the sluice box that kind of direct some of the stream water into the sluice. This stream, there's plenty enough water here, but it's so spread out, and the fall isn't very big. In other words, the amount of drop that the water's having, and it's the fall of the water, not just the volume. The volume plus the slope of the water as it's dropping down determine the energy that can move the sand and gravel through. So by putting a little bit of a bigger rock guide to kind of funnel material into the top of the sluice box, helps get a little more water in there and helps move some of the material kind of through there. I showed you the box that I had. I showed you what it's like, what it looks like, and the close-up. So you know what it's looking like as I'm working through this. I'm keeping the box clean, taking my time to let the material settle on through, and not adding too much too fast. You see, I've taken my time here, and I'm down to where I'm cleaning out the bottom of the bucket just to get the last little material in the bucket, and I will put that in as well. Here again, I'm letting the water do its work. I'm not rushing things, and that's important to do. So I thought I'd take a little time here and go through my cleanup process. Now, you've seen me go through the last of this bucket, and at this point, one of the things that I do is to just let the sluice clear out any of the sand, mud, anything else that's in there. And then the rock that I took off the top of the sluice is a rock that I had to hold the sluice in place. I always anchor the sluice to make sure that it's not going to move on me while I'm trying to feed material in it. And then just now I was moving a few other rocks, and now I'm finally gently lifting the thing up. I don't want to dump it. I don't want material to come out of the sluice box. I don't want water to wash through and send all the gold back into the creek. I very carefully picked it up, and now I'm dumping it into my 5-gallon bucket. And I always use a 5-gallon bucket to clean up in. I've seen guys try to clean up sluices like this into just a single pan. And in my opinion, that's nuts. Because, any material that you splash out the pan isn't going to hold much. And any of the material that splashes out, you've done all that work to dig material and run it through your sluice, and you're just throwing it back in the creek. But with the 5-gallon bucket, the 5-gallon bucket you can wash stuff into, and the bucket has plenty of room to hold material. And I can, just continue to look. Now, here I'm looking for any nuggets. I've pulled the material through the sluice. I'm cleaning it up, and I'm checking it as I go, both to wash the material down into the bucket, out of the riffles, but I'm also checking to see if I've gotten any nuggets. Now, it didn't end up actually getting any nuggets this day, but the first day that you saw me working, the first day, and I dug gravel from pretty much the same area, the first day I'd got a nice little nugget. And I'm going to show you that here in a minute when I show you the cleanup and the final results from all my sluicing. But, the cleanup is an important part of the process. And, even if you do everything else right and then you clean up wrong, you're going to throw gold back into the creek. And you don't want to do that. So here I'm carefully removing the little wing nut that holds the riffles in place. Put that in my pocket. Don't lose the wing nut. And then I can pull out the riffles and kind of clean them up. Again, I'm still checking for nuggets. I probably don't really need to do that, because if you've done the right procedures and you've followed the right process, you're going to capture any nuggets that you put into your sluice. It's the fine gold that's harder to catch. The nuggets are much easier. And here I'm washing off the expanded metal, because underneath the riffles in this little sluice box is expanded metal, and I'm washing off the expanded metal and making sure that it's nice and clean. So when I take it out, and I can be done with it, and then just make a quick look to see, I turned it over and stuck the top end into the water in the bucket just to make sure it was fully cleaned. And then, it got caught on the miner's moss. The edges of the expanded metal caught on the miner's moss, and I had to pull them apart with my gloves. And now the miner's moss is in the bucket, and everything is pretty much in there. I'm still washing it off, making sure any gravel that is in the box is not something that's gonna get lost. That I'm gonna capture in the bucket whatever I've saved in the sluice box. And this material, because it was so clayey, some of the clay stuck in the little ribbed matting at the top there, and so I had to fiddle with it to get everything out of the ribbed matting, because there was stuff kind of stuck in there. And see, with this, even if the bucket is full and you've got overflowing water, the gravel will sink to the bottom and the mud water will go out over the top, and so you're pretty safe. And at this point, I'm just making double extra sure that I've got everything into the bucket. And really, all I have left is to pull the sluice out and reassemble the sluice box. I also spend a minute or two washing the last little bit of mud out of the concentrates that I have, because there was some remaining mud. Just cleaning it up, taking out any extra clay and pouring that out, while saving any sand or gravel that's in my concentrates. All the heavies are in the bucket. So I'm pretty much done with the process here. Like I say, other than reassembling the sluice and cleaning the mud out of the... right here, actually, I'm cleaning out the miner's moss. That's certainly got to be done before I can finish. I got to get the miner's moss all clean, get any sand or gravel or gold trapped in the miner's moss, get that down into my bucket, into my concentrates. And here I actually will go through and wash both sides of the miner's moss, carefully slapping it against the surface of the water to kind of relieve the surface tension. And we're clean. We're pretty much ready to go. I was just taking a quick look at it, making sure it's clean, and it's ready to go. So the cleanup process here is essentially done. I'm dumping out the extra mud water. Let's take a look now at the final results and what the cleanup showed, and that little nugget I keep mentioning. And here's the little nugget that I picked out of the sluice box. I saw it and just reached down and grabbed it. It runs at 2/3 of a gram. So, that's not too bad. That's a nice little nugget. It certainly would have been detectable if I'd have, gotten close enough to it with the coil. And then here's the fines. Ended up with 1.3 grams, and when you add that to the little nugget of 0.68, I'm just shy of 2 grams. And so, I was real happy with this. It wasn't quite as much as what I expected when I was picking that little nugget out of the sluice box. I thought, oh boy. But still, it's pretty good for a couple days sluicing. I did 17 buckets of material, and that was a good job. So, it's a skill to be able to find gold and get out there and know where to look. And to teach you guys, or anybody that's interested, I wrote a book about that. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book right now. So let me tell you a little bit more about my book. It's called Fistful of Gold, and I wrote it because I want you to be able to go out and find for yourself Fistful of Gold. And you can see that it's an encyclopedia with all kinds of information, pictures, and that sort of thing. It's not in color, but color would have cost me a lot more to have printed, and so the book would have cost a lot more. It's for sale on Amazon, and you can pick it up. I'll put a link in the description below. I also serve as the editor for a prospecting magazine. It's ICMJ's Prospecting and Mining Journal. And honestly, you should check that out. We got stories and information, legal stuff, everything you know to increase your skills as a prospector. I write articles in this every month, and a lot of other very experienced prospectors contribute to the magazine as well. So check the magazine out. Also, I have a website, and the website is at NevadaOutbackGems.com. I'll put a link for it in the description below, but there's gobs of information there that you will find useful in your prospecting efforts. Finally, I want to say that I really appreciate your comments and thoughts, and even positive criticism. Don't come on there and just toss out insults, because I'll just delete your comments. But if you've got helpful things to say and questions to ask, do write and put those in the comments, because I answer my comments to people, and you'll hear from me in responding to you. So if you've enjoyed this video and you like what you see and you're interested in finding out more, well then sign up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so they'll let you know when I post new videos. And like it and share it if again you see stuff that you really are excited about. And I'll be coming out with lots more new videos, and so we'll see you again real soon.